Welcome to the Private Practice with Soul podcast. My name is Dr. Brooklyn Storme, and I help private practice owners align their business back with their soul's calling, with their big vision and with their soul's purpose. Unlike other private practice coaches, I've traveled the world in search of spiritual resources, spiritual tools, education and information so that you can have the transformation that your soul desires and needs so that you can up-level your business. How much fun is this? I love it so much. Guys, if you're not already a member of the Private Practice Monthly Mentorship Group, please check out the show notes. I would love for you to be there. In the meantime, thank you so much for pushing play today. Let's begin. Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. I know I'm just sneaking this in the morning, aren't I? I didn't get a chance to record it yesterday. I'll tell you why in a minute. But before I forget, welcome to all the new subscribers. And thank you so much to everybody who's been downloading the episodes. We're at 18,200. So thank you. I've also started a new Instagram feed for you guys who are listening. So thank you very much for your suggestions. You can just pause this podcast now if you like and head over to at Private Practice with Soul, and you'll see I've got a brand new, fresh, clean, pretty feed over there with lots of tips and tools based on the podcast just for you. So I hope that you find it a really handy resource that you can access in between these episodes. So, yesterday, so as you know, I sold my house recently, right? And I can't believe where the time's gone, but it's just, it has flown. And anyway, I needed to go and install ducted heating at Mum's house because, as you know, I'll be staying there for a little while until we organise extensions or whether or not we're both going to sell our houses and go and do something else together. But anyway, she needed new ducted heating. So I thought, oh yeah, I'll take care of that. Not a problem. And it was so funny because she came down to my house at like 6:30 in the morning yesterday, and I went up to hers because we're waiting for the heating guys to be there at 7. And of course, they didn't turn up till 9:15. And it was so cold. It was like 2 degrees. I think I did a screenshot and posted it, but it was like 2 degrees. It was so cold. And I was sitting there having a session with my coach at 9 o'clock, and I was all rugged up, and I don't know if you've seen South Park or not, but I had my hoodie on and I felt like Kenny, and my coach was laughing saying, oh my gosh, it's summer over here and it's 35 degrees. I was like, yeah, it's freezing here and I don't have any heating yet. So, it was just one of those times. It was like so early in the morning. It was 2 degrees. It was freezing cold. And I just thought, yeah, but you know what? I'm still showing up for my business. And I think that's what we do, isn't it? Like as women in private practice, we, make these commitments and we do like to see them through, even when we could probably have done with a day off so that we could organise all these other things, right? Gabe had a good day though. He was here at my house with my mum in the heat. And he slept under her feet most of the time, but he started this thing lately where he's got a dog door, okay? And normally he will go in and out of the dog door. But lately he started demanding door service. So it's requiring, if I'm home, for me to get up and open the door physically to let him in and let him out. He's taking a stand against the door and he just wants door service all the time. The other thing that he's really enjoying at the moment is he's getting a little bit of arthritis. And in the morning I pick him up and I put him on my bed so we can have a little cuddle, just while the heater kicks in and we can warm up. And then I get up and I leave him sort of in bed to have a bit of a sleep in. And I got his arthritis medication, which I call a lolly, because if I call it medicine, I just think he's not going to have it. So I just call it a lolly. And so I take that back and I give that to him in bed. And so he'll eat that and then he'll stay in bed for another little while. So he's been enjoying having sleep-ins and stuff like that. So it was really nice for him to spend time with Mum yesterday. They get along like a house on fire. And of course, being his nana, she lets him get away with all sorts of things that I don't as his mum. So yeah, they had a good time together, and happy to say we've got heating at both of the houses now, which is so good. But anyway, what I want to talk with you about today on our podcast is in the Australian Counsellors in Private Practice online group. As you know, in June we had Money Mindset. And now this group is growing, and I think we've got, I've checked it this morning, I think there were 370 people in that group, all counsellors. And so some new people are catching up on last month's work. And one of the questions that's come up in there is about charging and, how much should you be charging? And I think this is so important for all of us. It doesn't matter whether you're in allied health or whether you're in a different field. It doesn't matter. I think this issue of charging, it goes beyond the fee itself, because I think, or I believe, that your fee is just neutral, right? It doesn't have any energy around it. It's just a fee. It's just there in black and white. It's just a fee. I think what happens is we as women practitioners can end up attaching a meaning to that fee. And that's totally on us, isn't it? I mean, we could all have the same advice, we could all have the same fee, but we could all have a different meaning. For example, I might charge $300 for a counselling session, and the meaning I attach to that is, this is what this session is worth. This is what this transformation is worth. And I'm very comfortable receiving payment to support somebody in that transformation. But there might be somebody else who, if she was recommended, why don't you bump your fees and why don't you charge $300? She might have a mini panic attack and think she's going to lose all her clients. Nobody will pay that. So the fee itself, in terms of energy, is a neutral energy. It only has a positive or a negative energy charge when you attach meaning to it. And here's the paradox of that as well. Paradox is the theme for this episode, by the way. But here's a paradox of that as well. When we're attracting meaning to it, we're kind of making it about us, and we're not making it about our clients anymore. Even though in our minds, we might be trying to justify a fee, so that it makes it easier for a client. We're not really. What we're doing is trying to reconcile the fee for ourselves. When you have a fee, it's going to have an energy about it. And the way to see whether or not you're charging the right fee for you is to tune in to what it feels like, either energetically, what your heart is saying, what your soul is saying, or where you're feeling it in your body. For example, a simple way, this is a way that I gauge my fees, okay? Because you know what, every 12 months or so, you want to increase them, obviously, keep up with the cost of living. So the way that I set my fees energetically and intuitively is I will ask myself, how does this fee feel? How does this fee feel? All right, that's all. And I will start with ridiculously high fees and then introduce ridiculously low fees. And then I will just keep changing that fee until the feeling shifts. So if I said to myself, how does it feel for me to charge $20 for a counselling session? Straight away, my body says no, like that's way too low. If I say to myself, how does it feel to charge $1,000 for one counselling session? My body says, no, that's out of alignment at this moment. Maybe in the future, but not right now. And so then what I'll do is I will come down. So I will say, well, how does 800 feel? And then I'll say, how does 40 feel? How does 600 feel? How does 60 feel? And I'll try and wait until the energy just kind of clunks into place and it feels like, yeah, okay, that fee for me today is really aligned with my body, with my energy, with my heart, soul, and spirit and mind. So For me, when I last did this, the fee for my services for like supervision and mentoring was 210. Okay. But what that's going to be, so my coaching fees just increased because it felt out of alignment to me before with the fee that it was. Okay. So that's just increased. And when I was having to go through the process of, well, what's my coaching fee going to look like now? I went through this sort of internal barometer of just checking in with myself. The other thing that I did was I journaled, and the question that I used was, if I was charging the fee that was right for me in private practice, what would be going on? What would that look like? How would I feel? And what would that fee be? Okay. And so that's just another exercise that you can do to help you tune into the fee. And one of the things that I want to share with you is that when you're a soul-centered practitioner, and you're identifying as somebody who's interested in spiritual practice and integrating that in your private practice, spirituality by definition is finding answers from within, different to religion. Religion is we look elsewhere. So we look to a god, or we look to a deity, or we look to something like that. Religion is there's usually a text or a prescription or a dogma, or some kind of set of guidelines or rules or something like that. We don't have those in spirituality. In spirituality, we connect in with our higher conscious, we connect in with our heart space. We try and tune in to that little voice inside, or to those feelings inside. And so what I see many women do, especially in the helping professions, doesn't matter if you're a psychologist, a social worker, or a counselor, is checking to see what other people charge. That's the first thing. And that's a problem, because when you do that, you're out of alignment. Other people have chosen their fee for a reason, and those reasons are not known to you. So by you adopting somebody else's fee, that's never going to feel okay for you, because you don't have any rationale for it. You don't have any reason for it. You're just kind of saying, well, everybody else is doing it, or the average fee in my area is this. And so it's never going to feel for you like you have embodied the fee that's right for you, the fee that's right for the transformations you provide, the fee that's right for the work that you do. So that's the first kind of thing that I want to draw your attention to. When we're talking about spiritual practice, what we want to do is help you learn how to self-validate your decisions. We need you to be okay within yourself with what you're charging, because when you are comfortable with what you're charging, you're not going to be looking at what everybody else is doing. And that's really, really powerful. It also helps you release things like imposter syndrome, because you're not looking around comparing yourself to other people and other professions. You're validating from within. So you're comfortable from within. And that's what this process, or these exercises that I've given you, help you to do. They help you to validate from within. That's really, 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 really freeing and very liberating. And you can do it with all kinds of things. Just today we're talking about money. The other thing that I see people do is they will say, well, you know what, everybody online in the groups telling me I should be charging $120, but I'm in a low socioeconomic area and my clients can't afford that, so I charge $60. So here again, what's happening is this woman in private practice is making an assumption. She's attributing a meaning to the fee. She's saying, if I charge this, then that. If I charge $120, then nobody will be able to afford it, which means I won't get a fully booked diary, which means my business will not be successful, which means I will have to go and get a day job, which means everyone was right. You know, my partner was right. My friends were right. This was just a big dream that I had. And of course it didn't work out. You don't have to go down that path. Instead of you anticipating or you predicting or you making assumptions about what you think people can and can't afford, which is very disempowering to your clients. How about you let your clients make the decision about how they want to spend their money? If you need evidence that you can charge a fee in a low socioeconomic area, there's plenty to be had. I'm an example of that. I worked in a low socioeconomic area on the Mornington Peninsula, both Frankston and Hastings, and I was charging $210 for my sessions, and I was fully booked, still am. And there's a high proportion of people here with, on low incomes. But when you choose a fee because it aligns with you, you attract people who align with you. Does it mean that not everybody can work with me? Of course it does. But those people have a choice about whether or not they want to work with me too. Is there any expectation that I provide free services? No, there's not. There are other organisations that provide extra services for people who are on low incomes. But I'm choosing not to work with low income people, and that's just my decision. That's what aligns with me. I spent a lot of, not to justify it, but just to give you the background, I spent 18 years bulk billing, not charging people for having sessions. So I feel like I've kind of, I've given back and I'm done. I've done that. Now my practice is different because I'm different. My practice values have changed because I've evolved, and with my growth and with the shift in my awareness, my practice grows and it shifts in how it serves and in how it works and how it operates and who it helps and how it helps and all those sorts of things. And what I can share with you is that I make when I first started, I was working, I think, about a third of the time and making the same money as I was when I was killing myself booking 12 sessions a day. All right. So there's no pressure on you to be that private practice owner that only works with low income families. Okay. You don't have to be that person. If you want to, that's amazing. And you'll find a way to do that aligns with you. What can also work is a different business model where you do charge a fee that you feel aligned to, and that allows you to then do a little bit of pro bono work. So that's what I do now. Like, my business model is charge a fee. I attract the people that want to pay that fee and that can afford that fee. And then what I'm able to do is I can see 4 pro bono clients every month. And that feels good to me to be able to do that. I couldn't do that if I wasn't charging the fee that I'm charging. So try to tune into the self-talk that you have around whether or not you're making assumptions about what you think people can and can't afford. And do you know what? Here's the thing. If you have a low self-worth and you're telling yourself nobody will book in because they can't afford you, that's what you're going to manifest. If you say, well, I'm going to start charging a fee, that's okay. Maybe your old audience or your older demographic that you're marketing to won't be able to afford you, but you'll be marketing to a different demographic who can. And you'll be speaking and attracting a different demographic who can. So again, just as your practice evolves and changes with the fee, so too will your client demographic. And in my experience, it's my experience only. If you want, you can go and check with other people about their experience too. But I can honestly, hand on heart, say that it's been very, very different working with people who invest in themselves to people who don't, regardless of the reason. I don't want to get into that, but there is some very clear differences. And as I said, I know this from 18 years doing it for no money, and then another 7 years where I do get paid. So here is what I can share from my knowledge. First of all, when I was bulk billing and not charging, and even when I started to charge and I was only charging $15, it was a very different demographic that I was attracting to my business. I had, and I can look back at my Haloxy stuff and see this clear as day. I had very high cancellation rate. So the medical center were constantly filling me up with new bookings, new clients, new referrals. But there was a high cancellation rate. There was a high non-attendance rate. So people would book sessions, say they were going to come, and then not come. And I couldn't do anything about it because the medical center weren't charging any money. So it just meant I was sitting there for an hour, not income producing. But I still had a mortgage to pay, and I still had to put petrol in the car and things like that. I also noticed that when I was working with people that weren't investing in their well-being, for whatever reason, again, the presenting issues tended to be really complex. The types of issues that often couldn't be adequately or sufficiently supported in 6 to 10 Medicare sessions. These people needed long-term, ongoing support that Medicare model didn't allow for, because Medicare model is short, sharp interventions. So it didn't allow for long-term therapy, even though these people needed it. So I was out of alignment in terms of my ethos. I really wanted to help people. So it was very hard for me to sit in a Medicare model with clients who needed more long-term help but weren't able to access it. So I found it hard in that way. And perhaps because of the complexity of the results, a lot of the time, not all, but there was a high proportion of the time that you're dealing with crisis. And so that can be very disruptive to a therapeutic plan. You have as a practitioner, you do treatment plans, don't you, for your clients? And session by session, you have an idea of, what are our goals and what are we going to work on and what's the big aim here and all of those sorts of things. But a lot of the time that can be disrupted because there's been a crisis. And so sometimes you feel like you're more putting out fires than you are supporting somebody in recovery or supporting somebody through their mental health journey or their wellness journey. And for that reason, the results can sometimes reflect that, because either people, there's a high attrition rate with bulk billing or low fee clients. And so sometimes you don't get to see them through to the end. Sometimes when you do, when you work in psychology, for example, you would do, and I'm sure it's probably the same for social work, but you do like a pre and post mini assessment. We use the DAS 21 usually. So you would do that in the first session, and then in the 6th session, and then in the 10th session, and you could track somebody's progress. Well, sometimes people wouldn't even fill those out, or they would refuse to fill them out, so you couldn't see how they were tracking. But because of the nature of their presenting issues, sometimes the scores would actually, worsen. And so it was very hard to feel like you were making a difference. It was very hard to feel like you were making progress. And so sometimes you'll come away from a day of seeing clients and you would, feel heavy, and you would feel hard. You'd feel like, am I doing a good enough job here? Am I being effective here? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Also, with the complexity of clients, there was a higher request rate for things like letters to take to the Department of Human Services. There were higher rates of requests for letters for Centrelink, to support people with, payment issues. There were higher levels of requests for things like financial aid and support, especially with things like paying fines. There was a higher request from hospitals to, have case conferences about, somebody's recent admission, all of that sort of stuff. So that was kind of the work that I was in for those 18 years. And I worked at medical clinics through that time in low socioeconomic areas. 7 years ago, I started charging fees. And although the transition was very disruptive, as you know from previous episodes, what happened was the practice morphed and changed and evolved, and so too did my client base. So what I have noticed and seen and experienced working with clients who pay a fee is that there's an increased rate of attendance. In fact, I barely have any cancellations now. I get prepayment. There's rarely any disputes over fees or payments or anything like that. There's a lot lower rate of cancellations. When people can't come, they will take control of that themselves, and they will go to my online booking system and they will themselves reschedule their session. So that's fantastic. They're empowered and equipped to be able to do that. There's less complexity in the presenting issues. They're just different issues. So the people that I work with now aren't so much in states of crisis or having those high needs. It's more people who are, I guess, experiencing some kind of challenge, and they're wanting some kind of change. And what I've observed is that when we talk about next steps or action steps, or if we talk about tasks to do between sessions, nearly all of the time, nearly all of my clients will come to the next session with that work completed, or they'll even email it to me in between our sessions so that I've got it, and they'll ask me for feedback or a review or something like that. You know what I mean? So it feels very collaborative. It feels like you're both on the same page, heading towards the same thing. And, there's more, compliance, more action taking. And I've also noticed that there's a higher completion of treatment, and there's really, really good results. Aside from that client experience, as a private practice owner, what charging fees that align with me allow me to do is work less. And that's been really important to me, because coming from a bulk billing model where I was working 5, sometimes 6 days a week, booking 12 clients, praying 6 or 7 would turn up. Now I can just work, 3, what do I work now? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's 9 till 12. So that's 9. And then Thursday, Friday, it's 9 till 2. So I think that's 4 or 5. So now that's what I work, and I have a week off every month. And it's better because I have the capacity now to take time off when I need to take time off. I don't have to worry about there not being any money in the account to support that. I can be sick and not stress that I'm not income producing. I show up better for my clients. And I don't know if you're listening to this and you have gone on a similar journey where maybe you started charging a low rate and then you've started charging a higher one. Did you notice that you showed up differently when people started paying you, or when people started paying you that higher rate? I think for me, there was a noticeable energy shift, and it was so interesting to sort of observe within myself. And I thought, I wonder what's going on here. But it was like suddenly I felt really present in my sessions, and I felt really excited, and I felt really like I wanted to show up in the best way that I possibly could. And I'd always felt that, but it was just different now. And I don't really know how to explain it. It was just a different energy. And now that I don't work as much, I'm able to do things that I couldn't as easily do before, like take time off to go on PD. And I love professional development. In fact, this year I've already done and completed 2 courses. I did another 3 last year. I couldn't have done that if I was stuck in bulk billing, seeing all those clients, working all those long hours. I think I'm probably, maybe my friends and family would say I'm a bit nicer to be around because I'm actually here. I'm not off at the office. And when I'm here, I'm a bit more calm and I'm a bit more relaxed because I'm able to take better care of myself. I've gone and booked out my supervision for the next 12 months. I have gone and booked out my coaching for the next 12 months. Do you know what I mean? Like I've scheduled off time for holidays for me to take in the next 12 months. I have set up super. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm in a really, really, really good place. And it's all because I found a fee that aligned with me. And I stopped looking at what everybody else was saying and doing. And I know what it's like to compare yourself to others because I did that too. for the longest time, I remembered thinking, oh, well, I'm not a clinical psychologist, so I shouldn't be charging this much. And I see some social workers saying, well, I'm not a psychologist, so I shouldn't charge this much. And then I see counsellors say, well, I'm not a social worker or a psychologist, so I shouldn't charge this much. And here's what I want you to take away today as spiritual women. I want you to stop basing your worth or your ideas of your worth and what you should be charging on the external, and bring it back to you, okay? Tune in to what feels aligned for you. And you don't have to base it on justifying it by your qualifications. You don't have to justify it by your experience. You don't get to charge more because you've been doing it longer. You don't get to charge more because you've got a PhD. You don't get to charge less because you've got a diploma. No, none of that stuff matters. What matters is your energy. What matters is what's right for you. Because if you're undercharging, here's what's going to happen. You may start to feel like you don't want to go to work. You may start to hope people don't book in. You may start to manifest that. You may start to resent clients because they're not paying you. And hey, look, in my career, there were absolutely times where I would get new bulk billing clients coming to see me, and they would say to me things like, oh, this will be our last session, Brooklyn. And I'd say, oh, really? Why? Because we're only sort of halfway through. What's going on? And they would say, oh, I've been on a wait list to go and see a psychologist, and she's really good because she charges $200 an hour. So there's also a higher perceived value. That psychologist and I were both qualified psychologists, both experienced psychologists, both done the same courses. The difference was she was charging and I wasn't. And therefore, this client thought because she had to fork out $200 to go and see this psychologist, she must therefore be better and she must know her stuff. So there's going to be that as well. And just like our clients experience higher perceived value, I think we can experience it for ourselves. And sometimes we think if somebody's got a different qualification or different experience or whatever it is, we're telling ourselves a narrative about what that means for us. It's like, well, she's got a PhD, therefore I shouldn't charge what she charges because I don't have one. And that's simply not true. You have to charge the fee that feels right for you. And you do not have to justify it to anybody. Okay? You get to choose. If you want to charge $200, charge $200. But what I would say is don't undercharge. And you will know when you are because the energy will feel off. You know in your heart whether you're undercharging. And here's something that I want to share with you. I believe that a lot of women in private practice are undercharging because of stories that they tell themselves, like what we've discussed today about what they assume clients can and can't afford, what they assume they're worth, all of that sort of stuff. If you let those stories go, if you let those narratives go, if you let those beliefs go, you just allowed yourself, just for fun, to sit with the energy of the right fee for you, allow yourself to experience that. And yes, if you go ahead and you want to implement it, you just give 4 weeks notice and you can grandfather your existing clients. That's the other thing. People say, how do I introduce a raised fee? Well, there are a few ways to go about it, but what you might like to do is let people know, right, there's going to be a small fee increase from the 1st of September. If you're an existing client, it won't affect you, until the 1st of January. So you have your appointments before the 1st of January at this same rate. But for all new clients, you'll be on at this new fee. Okay? That's all you have to do. And you will see a shift. You will see some clients say, well, you know what, it's just out of my price range now. But that's okay because when they go they're going to be able to connect with people that are in their price range. But it will also create space for you to receive clients who want to make that next level investment in themselves. Okay. So have a think about what feels right for you without thinking about what other practitioners are doing and without making assumptions about what we think clients can and can't afford, because it's none of our business what they do with their money. Okay, that's nothing to do with you. No offense, but that's not your business how somebody spends their money. What is your business is how you run your business. Okay, so I mentioned like this idea of paradox, and it was actually Carl Jung that said that the paradox is one of our most valuable spiritual possessions. And if you have been doing shadow work, then you absolutely know that this is true, okay? But it can be really, really difficult for us to see both sides of the coin. So when we're talking about transpersonal psychology for a moment, we're talking about moving beyond ego, and ego is that mindset, and it's the fear, and it's a scarcity. What if no one books in? What if I lose all my clients? What if there's a mass exodus? What if? We want to move beyond ego. And part of that requires us to appreciate the polarity of the different elements of our private practice. And there's absolutely going to be polarity when you come to think about your fees. So that's what we're saying before. Just like there are going to be some people, you might say, oh, well, there's going to be some people who can't afford it. What I would encourage you to do is look for an example or two where that's happened to you, where somebody said they can't afford it, okay? And then what I want you to do is find an example or two where somebody did pay, where somebody did afford it, where somebody did find the money. This is how you start to integrate shadow and light, light and dark, masculine and feminine, yin and yang. It's seeing both sides of the coin. Because if you only start to see one side, then you're going to have a very skewed, unbalanced, biased view. And that's not going to help you choose the right fee for you. Okay? So every time you become aware of that self-talk in your mind, saying somebody can't afford it, or this will empty my diary, or something like that, find an example or two that back it up, and then find an example or two of the opposite. And if you don't have your own yet, look to other people in your industry, in our industry, that are examples. You use me as an example if you like, until you've got your own examples of this working. Okay, so this was an episode for you all about polarity and paradox and choosing the fee that's right for you. And this is your challenge. Your challenge is to go away and really think about, sorry, Gabe's distracting me. He wants some attention, bless him. Go away and really think about what's the fee that's going to be right for you. And if you're in the group, feel free to process anything that's coming up, or if you need guidance or support around it, so that I can help you with it, because it's, there's no point in you starting a business if you're going to burn out in the first 12 or 18 months. Okay. And I want to support you in being able to create a business that works for you instead of you working for it, if you know what I mean. Okay. All right, ladies, have a beautiful Saturday. Thank you so much for listening to another episode. If you loved it, give it a like, share it with somebody who needs to hear it. And I'm going to go and walk this little fella now, my little fur baby. He's pointing to his lead with his nose. Okay, I'm going to get going and take him for a walk. Have a beautiful day, everybody, and I'll see you later. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Private Practice with Soul podcast today. If you're looking for clarity, if you need help with branding, your processes, and bringing everything into alignment with your soul's purpose for your private practice, Head to the show notes and click the link for more information about the Private Practice Monthly Mentorship Group. You are going to love it. I can't wait to see you in there. Thanks so much for listening. Bye.